from Greece. Sorry, we have the introduction indeed.
Yeah, we have a bit of an intro.
We have an
and
intro
then
to give you background information on the data model itself. What is this about? What have we will present the classes, the properties in a nutshell, and the main objectives. Is it you, Florian, who is going to do it?
Yeah,
Okay.
indeed. Thanks, Miguel, for the good overview over the great agenda of today's knowledge sharing session. So before jumping into the presentation from Greece and the content of this webinar, I'd like to briefly go through a bit of background for the people who didn't have the chance to attend previous sessions, because that's been a while we haven't been all together in a webinar. And so, as you can see on the slide, basically the pilot activities we are going through now with all of you is around an extended data model compared to the repository of links that all of you have started using in the past year and a half. And this model was built all together through several webinars in the process with around 10 member states, depending on the sessions. And it's really focusing on the articles 9, 10, and 11 of the regulation of the single digital gateway. And it's really based on the repository of links. So capturing the information that the repository of links is requiring, but also going further with some extra elements coming mainly from CPS-VAP, the Core Public Service vocabulary from the Catalogue of Services action that Miguel introduced. And the needs of this model, the focus area is really to see how extra metadata can help to improve the overall quality of the search results on the YourEurope portal. Because we have seen that depending on the member states, on the regions and localities, you see different levels of quality, and with this, we would like to harmonize the way citizens and businesses can the experience they can have on the YourEurope portal, but also try to see how the provision and maintenance of the information around the links for the repository of links can be also improved or easier, can be made easier. And basically, the model we created, or the class diagram, is what I show now on the screen. It can be accessed from GitHub. For the people who are interested and who don't know where to look for it, we can put the link in the chat. And basically, it goes together with an entire specification. That's what I'm showing right now, where you can see the context, but also for each information, a description, how we thought together about how to use it, and also different properties for the different classes. But that's not the goal of today's webinar. It's important, if you haven't looked at it yet, maybe to have a look. But normally, most of you are pretty aware of what we are talking about here. And now, in the pilot activities we have started a couple of months ago, the idea was to see together how easily can the new metadata, the extra metadata from this model, be collected and added to the YourEurope portal, and from there assess together how findability and searchability of the public information on YourEurope has improved thanks to this enrichment. And that's really what we would like, why we have a knowledge sharing session today, and the key objectives of this pilot. If you have questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat, and I can stop to briefly answer it. So what are the practical steps that we have progressively built together with you? First, that's basically what I've described. It was conceptual groundwork that we did together to define the terms that we wanted to collect as extra compared to the repository of links that is currently in production. From this step, we were able to create a small template in a spreadsheet where member states with existing data models could start mapping conceptually the different terms. So that's the second step. Of course, for some member states that are not using a data model at national level, it's also possible to use existing specific public service information to do this tagging conceptually. From there, we translated the conceptual information from the model into specific tags that could be used by the repository of links. So normally we have been in touch and interactions with all of you about those tags. We have shared several times some emails with all of you, and from there the idea is similarly to what we had for the repository of links with the current information that is there, to give you the opportunity to add these extra tags through the channel that you prefer. So as you know, there's the possibility to use an Excel spreadsheet. There's the possibility of using the API to be automatically harvested by the repository. And also the crawler is one aspect that we'll also come back to with the natural language processing activities we'll be briefly discussing, where you could tag your HTML and be automatically crawled. And finally, as always, there's also the possibility to enter manual information. As you can see, this fourth step is still in development, simply because it requires adding those additional metadata. It requires some development from the supporting from YourEurope site, and so that's something you will see it back in the timeline. That's something we are working on together with DG Grow, and it should be ready by in the coming weeks, normally by the end of January. From the moment, so as you can see, those four ways of providing the extra information will be collected in the repository of links. The repository of links, there is one environment in production, but that's still back-end information, of course, meaning that there is no citizen or business that has access to the repository of links. But from the information collected in the repository of links environment, it will be pushed first to the YourEurope test environment. From there, the team from DG Grow will be able to provide some screenshots to see how the extra information collected can be visualized on YourEurope test environment. And then, as from the moment we have a green light, we provide a green light, it can be pushed to the production environment, so that all of us will be able to access the new information displayed. Meaning that later on, the testing we'll be discussing today, this will be done on the production environment. And that's why it's important. Of course, we are talking only about a few services as part of these pilot activities, but that's why it's important that the information we provide has the right level of quality. And yeah, so from the moment we'll go through the testing together, and we'll discuss several use cases and KPIs today. The idea is to learn from this testing, and from the results of the testing, this will be used as a feedback to improve the first model, the SDG Search Service data model, so that we developed as part of step 1. So you see how this creates a feedback loop and a cycle to improve ourselves iteratively. Are there questions about this? If not, then I propose that we we showed concretely how Greece applied it, and I would like to thank Theodoros, Valentini, and Liliane for their participation and their presentation today. So, Theodoros, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Florian. Hello, everyone. Let me take the screen. Just a moment. Okay. Okay, so I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah.
For those who had not the chance to meet before, I'm Theodoris Papadopoulos. I'm speaking on behalf of the Greek SDG team, and I will do just the presentation. All the work about this pilot has been done with my colleagues Valentini Paparizou and Lilian Kutsona. So I'm doing the easy part, the presentation. And this will be a brief presentation. We will speak about the main sources of procedures, of information about procedures in Greece, our main portals and registries. And I will showcase and probably repeat the steps that Florian already presented. I will elaborate in the steps, and then we will discuss the next steps and some ideas we had about how this pilot could be leveraged and used in the future. So I will begin by presenting our two main portals. The first one is a registry, actually. It's the Central Registry for Administrative Procedures. It's a project under development. We're trying to gather and record metadata about every procedure in the Greek administration. And there are a lot of procedures. We have already covered about 1,000 procedures, but this is a project under development, and it's part of a bigger project of the simplification of procedures. So this is one registry I'm going to talk about, and the second one is a portal. It's the central portal for SDG information. This is hosted under our national single digital gateway, gov.gr, and it's a dedicated portal that has been developed to cover the obligations we had for the Annex 1 of the SDG regulation. So it's a portal that has information about SDG procedures. And here is our registry, the first registry of administrative procedures. It's under development, as already mentioned, and here we are using the CPSV application profile to describe in details the steps, the requirements, the legal documents, the fees, a lot of information about administrative procedure. So we are using a very extensive model here. You are using CPSV, but we have also extended some parts of CPSV in order to be able to add information about SDG procedures. So the basic metadata that the regulation already requires have been added to this model. And the idea is that those procedures will be notified in the repository of leaks in YourEurope using the crawler. For the needs of this pilot, we work with the portal of information, not the registry of procedures, and that's because the portal of information is more mature. It's something we are using already in production to notify links in YourEurope. So it was easier for the needs of this pilot to use the SDG portal of information. As I already told you, this is a portal that has been developed, is dedicated to the Annex 1 of the SDG regulation. So we're using this portal to create content, national content about SDG informations, and to publish those information on the YourEurope repository of links. This portal is based on a much simpler model. As you can see on the right, we have 5 or 6 entities. Maybe it's the image is too small, but actually it's 5 or 6 entities. It's SDG page, SDG organization, SDG link, etc., etc. And so this is a much simpler data model. And we're using content management system, Django specifically, to create intended content, and the necessary SDG metadata as required by the regulation are automatically inserted in the HTML pages. You can see this flow here. It's a better way to describe what I'm trying to tell. We're using this custom CMS tool that is based on Django to enter information about SDG procedures or information about some SDG-related areas. And for example, we enter the title, the description, the content of the page, some files, some links, information about the policy code or the responsible organization or the responsible national contact point. And those information are entered both in Greek and in English and are translated in step 2 in the user interface in the actual web page where the visitor are coming and visiting from YourEurope. And at the back of these pages, at the metadata of these pages, the SDG metadata have been inserted by the system. And the crawler is using, the YourEurope crawler is using this metadata to upload our pages, notify our pages to the repository of links. This is how our processes are working right now before the pilot. And now let me explain what we did and what was our approach for the pilot. Let me remember that the scope of the pilot is to enhance the metadata about a specific SDG page or procedure in order to facilitate the way that the user can search or identify pages in YourEurope. So the scope is to enrich the metadata of SDG pages. So followed 4 basic steps. The first one was the mapping. Let me begin by describing what we did here. We took actually our model, our SDG information model. It's on the left here, down on the left, the 5-6 entities and the specific attributes we have in our model. And we tried to map those entities and those attributes to the classes and the attributes of the SDG Search Service model. We did this with the help of our colleagues from Interoperable Europe, who have had to exchange some emails and clarify some things, but in general, it was a straightforward task. Our model could cover most of the required classes of the SDG Search model. And here you can see how we map concrete metadata and how we map between specific attributes. For example, for the public service and the attribute name, we found which is our attribute from our model that we would have to map. And some indication on the last column if we have already this information in our metadata, in our web pages, or we need to provide this information as an extra information. So this is the first step, the conceptual mapping between the two models. And in the second step is the actual mapping. We chose 5 specific national web pages from our SDG portal. and we try to choose pages that are regularly visited, like the regular leave or the driving license validity. And using an Excel file, we fill in the actual values according to the mapping we had performed in the previous step. So for each page, we had to fill the description, the policy code, the organization, the attributes, and the identifier of the organization, etc., etc. This was also happened for sub-entities of the mapping. For example, the public organization had to be mapped in an extra sheet, in another sheet. And this was a process that also was straightforward. There was some questions and some exchange of information with our colleagues, but in general, it completed smoothly. And at the third step, as a mock-up, we created some mock-up web pages with the extra metadata that occurred after the previous two steps. So you can see this is a mock-up of a web page, and the first lines are the metadata that we were already providing to YourEurope, and in bold, in blue and bold are the metadata that we had to add to our web pages in order to test if everything is okay, and to know if this model can work. So we sent this page to our colleagues, and we verified that the model is okay, and the concept of the pilot can actually work. And at the fourth step, and we are right now in this step, we are trying different ways, and we're approaching different ways to how upload this metadata in the repository of links. As I mentioned, we have already sent an Excel file with the 5 web pages and the necessary metadata, but we are right now discussing the possibility to use a dedicated UI and insert form to send metadata to the repository of links, or to actually insert the extra metadata in our pages using the content management system. But this requires a little bit of work from our side. We have to modify our content management system in order to insert the extra metadata. And as we are now in a pilot phase, we are not ready yet to do this. Maybe we will do this on our test environment, not the production environment. And in the future, if everything goes okay and this pilot transform to a product, then we are going to do the necessary changes also in our production environment. So the metadata are going to the repository of links, and from this repository of links, the production repository of links, YourEurope is going to use this extra metadata in order to facilitate the search of information and procedures in the YourEurope portal. So let me wrap up. That's the process is straightforward. It's not very difficult for the rest of the member states that would like to take part in this pilot, in this test. You have to describe the mapping between the SDG service model and your model, and you need some effort to map some test pages using this mapping, and then decide how you are going to send the extra metadata to the repository of links. So here are the next steps. the important one is the testing. We have put effort in this pilot, but would like to be able to test the results. We'll be able to use YourEurope to test how this facilitates the user, how the extra metadata can facilitate the user in order to search for and find information more easily. And another idea and another possibility as a next step is to take part, to participate in the NLP experiment, where we are going to feed a machine learning project model and train a machine learning model with some of our pages, our English pages, in order to test if it's possible to have a model with high accuracy that will be able to propose automatically the necessary HTML tags from the text of the pages. And this is an interesting project, and we'll happily take part in this test. So I will conclude with some ideas of how we believe that this pilot could be used in the future. The first one is, and this is important for Greece especially because it's the use of this pilot for the deadline of end of 2022. You know that the SDG regulation requires the local authorities to provide information, SDG information, by the end of December 22. And so in Greece, the majority of municipalities is not so high. We have problems with the municipalities. So maybe if we, using this pilot, find a way to facilitate and help the authorities of the local authorities to tag their web pages, it will be very, very useful. And I believe that this pilot shows some ways that this can be done. The second idea is to, via this pilot, to find a model that captures a single way to describe public services for the needs of SDG. I mean, we have to agree where a lot of member states we have to find, in the context of SDG, to find a way to unify the way that we are describing public services. And we have already the CPSV application profile, but this is a very detailed model, and maybe we can find a smaller model that is suitable only for the needs of SDG. And the last idea is to use what we learn from this pilot to optimize our national search engines, and actually to use our gov.gr site and other national portals, and make them use the extra metadata to improve the way that we are searching. Our Greek citizens or cross-border citizens are using our national portals to search for services. That was my presentation. Thank you very much, and if you have any question, I will be happy to answer it. Thank you.
Thank you, Theodoris, for the great presentation, and Valentini as well, and Lilian for the preparation and the work you put into this. Are there any questions, first of all, for the Greek team about their presentation, about their approach, or the work they have achieved in the context of the pilot? So if there are no questions for now, we can then move on, but feel free to put them in the chat so we can address them later, or or interrupt us in the coming hour. So next, so we have heard Greece, and this can definitely serve as an inspiration for the other member states to how to approach this pilot. But now we can have a quick refer to Mural. So I will put the link for a Mural page in the chat here. So if you could click on this and go over to the page where we would like to have an idea of who is in the room now that we heard Greece. So you can have the opportunity now to create a sticky note once you're in the mural, and just quickly put in your name and your organization or country, and perhaps group them a bit so that we get a good idea of who is here. And once that is done, I'll give a couple of minutes for this. Once that is done, we can have a quick tour de table from the other member states to see what the status is of the pilot.
If you don't know how to create a sticky note, you can just double click and automatically it creates one. And then you can simply, once you have finished editing it, you can start dragging and dropping it where you would like to put it. So as Nathan said, let's group it per country to ease afterwards the round table. And you can think already about one person to briefly introduce the status of the country, so that we also have one person per country. That would also simplify the whole tour de table. If you have issues connecting to Mural, please let us know in the chat. But I see also many people connected. Yeah, Benjamin. You raised your hand. I don't know if you can take the floor if you want. And Nathan, I don't know if you could summon everyone to one view on the left for the first exercise, so that it's easier for everyone to know where we are.
Okay.
In general, you can see this at the bottom right for everyone, so that you can use this to navigate, or you can also simply click and move. So I see Lorenzo from Italy, from Portugal, Valentini from Greece, Anna from Spain, Cado also from Italy, Marco, yeah, of course, from Netherlands.
Okay, maybe if we can go back to the slides, Florian,
Yeah.
and I can introduce a bit. So the point of here of the first sort of exercise is to give each member state the floor for a couple of minutes, to have the opportunity to tell us about the status of the pilot for you. And these are some guideline questions. What is your status? But also, have you been able to find any similarities or commonalities between the SDG search service model and your way of describing public services, as that is one of the first steps that would be advisable in the context of this pilot. And then what are some next steps, or what are you currently looking into in order to proceed with the pilot? So these are some guideline questions that can put some structure into how to present the current status. And I think if everybody's ready on the mural, or well, maybe I can give 1 more minute until everything is finished there.
I think we can just carry on now with the status per member state. So who is ready to start to break the ice?
Well, maybe we can follow up
Alphabetical order.
the order we have on the screen right now. Of course, we had the overview of Greece.
So we have maybe Jorge Sousa from Portugal. You would like to tell us?
Hello. I'm trying to speak with my colleague here to see what we have to offer. So could I be next, please?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
So Italy, we have a big delegation from Italy. Who would like to take the floor, or how you want to speak?
Hello, I'm Lorenzo.
Lorenzo, hi.
Hi. So we tried to apply the model to the procedure 3. We decided to go with procedure 3 for the pilot, which is related to applying for study financing. So during this exercise, we had basically 2 major findings. First one is that we have a lot of services related to a single procedure. In particular, for procedure 3, we have 12 different services. So we tried to map this complexity in the model, and we thought one way to do this is to add an attribute to the public service class, basically trying to map a parent-child relation from the procedure, which is the higher level, of course, and the sub-procedure, which are the 12 different services that we found. Of course, the model right now doesn't support this way to represent data, but we think it would be useful to map the complexity from our side. The second point, also we found that we have more than one public organization providing the same public service. We discussed this topic during the pilot, and you told us that the major objective here is not to map all the public organization, but to find which competent authority is ultimately responsible for the public service, which is okay. But we have an issue then to map some sub-procedure to the correct public organization. I may tell an example which is related to starting a business activity. There are a lot of online procedure portals which can provide this service, which is related to the geographical position, basically the municipality. So we have thousands of municipalities, and so a lot of online procedure portal, and we need to basically map a lot of public organization to a single public service, and also have the location for this public organization to redirect the user in the correct way to the online procedure portal where he can execute the procedure. So these 2 were the major issues we found during our mapping exercise.
Thank you, Lorenzo, for the overview. That's very clear and interesting to hear your perspective. If there are any other questions for this, we can perhaps move on. We can, by the way, go into detail more later, also with some challenges and difficulties. We will go into that a bit later. So for now, we can move on to Portugal. Can you go next?
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to speak with my colleague here and get a glimpse of how we're doing. We're still stuck a bit in the mapping because the number of procedures is quite large and complex, and we've been having some difficulties identifying the relations and working out the mapping so that we know what we can annotate. So we haven't advanced that much yet, working on it.
Yeah, and that's fine, Jorge. And we can discuss that maybe a bit later on the next exercise to know more in details. Okay, what are the challenges as Nathan mentioned? Okay, thanks. Ana Rosa or someone from Spain to describe the state?
Yes. Hello, everybody. We are in a similar position than Portugal. We didn't have time to make the mapping because the SDG other business are quite demanding. But I would like to say that as we speak during the previous meetings, this model should work with the metadata already present in the SDG link repository. We were surprised to see the Excel you sent without this mapping because, I mean, you already could make that exercise for us if we only give you the links to include in the pilot. And I heard my the previous colleague, I don't remember the country, before Portugal, we cannot require our competent authorities to make that huge effort, the effort that colleague explained. So we need the pilot to work with the metadata already included in the repository of links. If we cannot make the pilot working with that metadata, then we have a problem because we need that. I think that is a must requirement. So of course it's nice to be able to extend the metadata in order to get more exact results in the search. Because for me, the biggest problem that the YourEurope portal has right now is the findability of the links. That is quite frustrating for our competent authorities, and it is a barrier for them to comply with the SDG requirements, because why to do this effort if at the end you cannot find your link in the YourEurope portal? So yes, it is nice to extend the SDG link repository metadata with other metadata to make this findability more accurate, but we need to make it work with only the metadata included in the SDG links repository. So please, I would like to get your help to see this must requirement working. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Anna, for the good overview. Probably the NLP, the natural language processing discussion, will be of interest later on in your case as well. But okay, I understand the concern, and it's good that you mentioned the findability, because that's also one of the key objectives of this, to test if we can improve the findability through this pilot. And I see that Alex has raised his hand. So Alex, the floor is yours.
You're muted, Alex.
Okay. Super. Hello, everyone. I just want to make a small clarification based on Ana Rosa's comments. Indeed, we will also use in this improvement the mandatory data. And wherever we find the additional data, we will display it, but we will not like penalize web pages that do not have the extended metadata. We'll use all the metadata that we have in the system for this exercise, and we will just add wherever possible and existing the additional metadata as well. Yes, Ana Rosa.
Thank you. My problem is that when we receive the Excel, and we are participating in the pilot, but we are overloaded by the SDG tasks by themselves. So my first demand is that we didn't receive the Excel with this exercise already done with our links. So for us, would be easier to send you the links in the and then you fill the Excel files with the metadata already present in the links repository. Then if we want to extend that metadata, then we can, but I mean, it is to repeat the exercise to include the metadata. I'm talking about the Excels you sent, I mean, the pilot team sent to us for filling the metadata. That is what I miss. And for the findability, I hope in the future to get a search tool similar to the assistant services tool that can rely on the metadata to find the links, not only relying on the Google capabilities or the natural languages search capabilities. So there are two different things.
Okay,
I try to say.
On the first point, we will use all the links that Spain already notified in the links repository in the scope of this pilot. So we will add to those links the metadata that is already present in the system, and it will not only be for Spain, it will be for all the member states that have links in the system.
Nice.
We will add the metadata in this improved view. If a member state will want to complete additional metadata, of course, it's on a voluntary basis. They are more than welcomed, and on those particular pages, they don't even need to provide this additional metadata for the whole dataset. They can provide it for 1, 2, 3 links and just see how it looks like. So it is a pilot. It is only on the voluntary basis, and we will use whatever was already provided inside the links repository without the need of any additional actions from the member states. We'll take the information from there. You don't need to complete any Excels. So the new Excels is only if you want to test the extended version of the metadata that we want to pilot now. That is the only reason for you to use the Excel. If for the time being you just want to see the metadata that's already in the system, then no action is required.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Alex, for the clarification. And again, let's discuss about how we can help you to decrease the time needed for the extended part, even though it's on a voluntary basis. I think it would be useful to do it for a few web pages, and then we see what is feasible. But yeah, I propose that we continue. Marco or someone else from the Netherlands who wants to make a short status on your side?
Yes, hello. I'm Marco from the Netherlands. We provided the Excel mapping to our national information model and had some back and forth with the team in Brussels. Basically, we have a lot of data also at a national level for both national and local services. However, we are not yet convinced that adding extra metadata will improve the findability in the Dutch context, which we discussed with your team as well. One of the things that we think would be really helpful was to increase the user friendliness of the YourEurope portal. we've tried finding our own products. We don't have that many at the moment, maybe 200, a few hundred. And we couldn't even find those, let alone the product descriptions in the right language. We've provided some examples to the team. We think that before we start providing extra metadata to improve findability, the basic functionalities and workings of the YourEurope portal should be in order and should be user-friendly. I'm glad to hear that Nathan has forwarded our comments to the team of, what is it, DG Grow, I believe. So we'll be happy to look what their response is. And to see if we can provide more input for the pilot. Like I said, we have a lot of data and metadata in our portal, so it should be there. But like the Greek example, there will be a difference of providing it through the content management system of the national portals and providing it through an Excel sheet, which should be rather straightforward. I think the example looked really simple, and if you can limit it to a limited number of pages, say 5 pages, that should be no problem. So I'll take this up with my colleagues who work for the national portals, and maybe we can get a step further. In the meantime, of course, like all other countries, we've been really busy implementing the SDG for local and regional authorities. That's looking promising. We have several systems that are being built at this moment. So things are going well. I won't say smoothly, but they're going forward at a steady pace. So thank you for your attention, and also thank you to the Greeks for their presentation.
Thank you, Marco.
Go ahead, Nathan.
Yeah. So what you said, Marco, we can definitely go into, and indeed we have also forwarded these issues and are looking into it for sure. So for now, I think it would be good to go to a next small part in the presentation. Florian, if you could share that. And that is to conclude all of your current statuses, is the lessons learned from Greece as well, and some best practices that we have learned so far on how to proceed with the pilots. So as you have seen from Greece, it can be done for as many or as little pages as you would like yourself. And the start is on the left is whether you have an existing model already, or what is your current way of describing public services in the context of the SDG. If you have an existing model, then that is already a great step forward, because you can focus on mapping, as discussed, the key concepts to the SDG Search Service model. If you don't have a model explicitly describing the structure of the metadata, it would be a good start to familiarize yourself with the SDG Search Service model, and then see how the concepts could be identified just in pages or in the systems that you have now. There could be some similarities there, which can form a great start for this pilot. Then if we move to the top right, the approach that helped Greece move forward a lot is a pragmatic and iterative approach, meaning that the mapping does not have to be complete right off the start. It does not have to be perfect. It's great to start with the key concepts that you can identify, and then discuss and collaboratively think about how the mapping can be completed further. And that is a great way to move forward. Also, finally, on the bottom right, we start with the conceptual mapping to see what is available, what you can do between the models, but you can really focus on what is feasible. Not every step that we proposed in the approach needs to is set in stone or needs to be in that exact order. So if there are any things that you can complete from different steps, it is certainly fine to move forward. Our approach is basically a suggestion to facilitate the pilot. So next, if we go to the next slide, I think we can go into some more details on the barriers that you have encountered that we all also already heard a bit about, and this exercise back in Mural. So it's great to see some people have already filled in some of the sticky notes. But I would like to invite you now to think a bit about what some key challenges were, as you already have mentioned. Put them here on the mural, and then we can go over them and try to discuss a bit on how to move forward.
Do you still need a bit more time, or can we start going through some of the sticky notes? Just raise in the chat if you would like still a couple of minutes.
Just give a couple of minutes more, Florian, because I see people still typing.
Yeah, okay. Great. Don't hesitate to continue adding some extra feedback or barriers. That's fine. In the meanwhile, I propose we start with the overview. So maybe starting from from this one, still need to see how mapping pracs would be done. I don't know who created this one and if the person can explain briefly. If not, we can move to the next, but yeah, we'll come back to this one. Who made the one to the right? Mapping the models took time initially, but progressively got more efficient. A lot of emails exchanged, but would be better to have sync meetings. Okay. In general, that's definitely something we can think about. So don't hesitate in interactions to mention if you would prefer to have a sync meeting. That's of course fine by us. That's what is the easiest for you. I don't know if the person wants to add something to this one.
Florian, it was me that made this comment.
Hey, Valentini. Yeah. Have you checked the settings to see if you have a loop between?
Is it okay now?
Yeah. Perfect.
So that comment about you just read was mine. I can come back with information how many emails we exchanged while working on the Excel, especially the first one, mapping the model. So all I was trying to say is that maybe you can make it, especially the first one, the model, the conceptual mapping, a little bit more, a little simpler, I don't know, or after each team works a bit on the Excel, we can have. It would be better if we would have a small meeting, a short meeting. It's just, I think it would be more effective time-wise, for sure.
Yeah.
That's my comment, basically.
Yeah, but that's useful. Thanks, Valentini. Yeah, for the others, for the map, yeah, in any step, basically, don't hesitate. We can always find a moment to sync instead of exchanging emails. That's always fine.
I can imagine, Valentini, this is a learning process. Is it like the first time you came across this exercise, mapping the first, let's say, set of services or website was very difficult, and the second time for the second web page was much easier? Can you tell us about this?
Yeah, when we were at the point of mapping, adding, let's say, this pilot metadata to the 5 test web pages was easy. By that time, it was straightforward. But before working, reaching that point, the first attempt, let's say, for mapping the models, and when it was more puzzle for me at least, but I think my colleagues will agree because we were actually working, the 3 of us, on it. When it got down, let's say, to the metadata, where you just had to, the tag of the metadata, and you just add the value that you would feed, that you would send, then it was very simple. So I'm just saying that I think we would have earned some time with less emails and maybe, short meetings. And and that exercise with tagging, see how the view source of a web page would be after adding the pilot metadata, it was very, very, very useful. I think it was step 3 in our presentation.
Yeah.
I want to say that we even found a mistake of the already SDG tags meta we were setting. We were using, instead of set for DC ISO meta, let me remember, it was DC ISO 3166 that we are supposed to set the 2 characters of countries, and we had it all wrong. So through this, we even corrected, let's say, a mistake we had in the existing already, the SDG regulation, the mandatory metadata.
Thanks, Valentini.
Yeah, including the existing metadata in the Excel of the pilot, it was not there from the very beginning, from the very first version of the Excel, if I remember correctly. It was also very useful.
Yeah. So that's there was a quality iteration over the mandatory requirements, the mandatory information. Yep. Okay. Great. Moving to the next. I understand it's not enough time for doing the mapping. Does it mean there is not enough time in general, or is it about the duration total that we should have left, or that is available now for the mapping? And who provided this one?
I think it was either Portugal, Spain, or both, because that was a major comment
From Anna.
made before. Yeah.
Yep.
They also the priorities on the once only technical system, and it's just taking all the resources away. If you want to take the floor, Ana Rosa, George, to explain. Yes, I was wondering whether if you, I understand the difficulty, but if you come across, Ana Rosa, you were mentioning, for instance, the region of La Rioja. You come.
No, that is not my comment, because I comment on the.
Okay.
I mean, this is solely the explanation made by Alex, so that this is solved. So,
But in any case,
if I don't remember if I put this sticky note, but if I did, forget it.
Okay.
But in any case, this is a problem you are facing, because you mentioned it earlier on, and you have not have time, resources to do this, and the competent authorities, they cannot afford.
Yes, but we told to you that we would participate in the pilot without involving directly the competent authorities with the minimum metadata. And then this is okay, because the minimum metadata will be piloted, and the natural language pilot, which I don't know right now which are the requirements. So we will see, I think, later on.
Okay.
I think it is also okay. So if I did that comment, forget it.
Okay, so it's like in the pilot, you will not be contacting a competent authority to enrich further the specification apart from what is already in the.
No. It is not possible. It is difficult for us, for our competent authorities. It's almost impossible. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
George.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, in our part, we have been trying to get around and choosing which services and which would be the best examples, and with the information that we have. But yes, it's a bit like you said, Miguel. The team is not that large, and the SDG project has been taking a lot of resources in several fields.
Yeah.
The once only mainly.
The once only, yeah. So
yeah.
It's a monster, let's say.
Yeah. And we still have to provide our normal work, you know, at the same time, because it's the same team. So yeah, it hasn't been easy following up with all the projects and all the requirements, etc.
Yeah.
We will get around to it. We will identify the services and tag them, and we'll let you know.
In any case,
when we finish.
I understand the situation. It's like I want to ask you the question as a kind of a reflection out of my mind. Is this pilot, in a way, at some point, a tool, an incentive to raise awareness that competent authorities, those interested that have some capabilities, they could work this way to get more visibility, to improve the findability of their services in the portal? Because in my view, this is the goal at the end of the day, to have a proof of concept and to show to some competent authorities that maybe they are more advanced or they have more interest in getting better results out of this to do this exercise with you. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just...
we are doing the exercise on our national portal, right? And we still haven't the interface for the competent authorities themselves to edit the information. It's still depending on our team. So we're still on a transition phase, and we're hiring we're in the midst of a large procurement procedure to find the people to help us improve that interface, and then we will take it to the authorities themselves. So it's an ongoing process, but it's a very large process for a very small team. So it hasn't been easy.
Yeah.
Thank you, George.
We'll be in touch in the coming weeks for the next steps, George, to see how best we can support you for the tagging.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Moving to the next. Many public organizations provide the same public service. The current version of the model only supports a single relation.
That was me.
Yeah,
Lorenzo. Okay, so as I said before, this is one of the major finding we encountered during the exercise with the pilot. Of course, to map the complexity from our side, it would be useful to link the public service to more than one public organization, since we may need in a lot of cases also the secondary information as location to find which is the correct online procedure portal in which the user can execute the procedure. So
yeah, I understand, Lorenzo. Let's maybe try to have a concrete example. In your case, you have provided some, but let's try together to document or to describe with the model a few public services that are and sub-services that are related to each others with several public organizations, and see how we can overcome this. I think that would be the best way to approach this one, right?
Okay.
We can be in touch to schedule something, and if you can share some docs, some documentation before, we could be, let's say, prepared also to go through together.
Okay. Yeah, yes, we can share a couple of examples of procedures that requires this.
Yep.
And go on. Okay. Thanks.
Great. And then moving to here, the last one to the left. Procedures may have a large number of related services. A mapping mechanism can help the user to start from the procedure and find the right sub-procedure.
This is mine as well.
Yeah.
And probably the point here is that is the view of the user experience that we have, which in some cases can start from the one of the 21 procedures which the user is interested to. And then using the parent-child mechanism that I was describing before, probably the user can drill down to the specific service that he needs. Of course, if he's performing a search on a search engine is a bit different. So probably the metadata which is included in the search model is already enough to do this. But for the user experience, which starts from the one of the 21 procedures and then drills down to the single service, a parent-child mechanism can be useful to achieve this.
Yeah, and I understand that this one, if it's not yet in the model, then it needs to be it's feedback also to add it in a future iteration, and that's also useful.
Okay.
Great. To top left were some challenges that Nathan described in the slides before. So I propose with this that we switch back to the slides for the next topic, dealing with the testing aspect. So we have, if you remember the general steps that were described as part of the introduction, once we collect the information on the repository of links content management system, as from there, we'll push progressively the information towards the YourEurope portal, and this is where the testing will start from. And we have prepared some use cases for the testing that we would like to present and discuss with you, and that's what Nathan will do in a second.
Indeed, thank you, Florian. Yep. So to assess the results of the pilot, a testing procedure will happen in the coming months. And some questions that we have asked ourselves and some questions that are important here are listed here, starting from what is findability, because the goal of the pilot, or one of the main goals, is to increase this findability on the YourEurope portal. And what are the factors that come into play when we talk about findability? And in the coming slides, we will present our view on this and what we have come up with. Also, how can the findability be improved using this metadata that will be provided in the pilot? And then finally, how can we test it? How can we practically make sure that we assess what the eventual impact will be of the metadata and of the WeWorks? Okay, so if we go to the next slide. We have prepared a couple of things to do this testing, one being use cases. So the use cases will really be how the metadata will be implemented on the YourEurope portal to increase the findability. And 3 scenarios here, starting with the first one is really the base scenario, is simply adding the metadata to the pages. But this does not include any visual changes yet on the YourEurope portal. This is the first use case, sort of the base scenario that we depart from. And I will explain it in the coming slides what it is exactly. The second would be additional filters on the YourEurope portal. And then third, and most importantly, a more extensive description or a visual change in the search results. Then the practical steps to perform the testing is some important thing to think about. And then finally, the KPIs, which key performance indicators will we use to assess how this findability has increased after the implementation. Next up, there are 2 ways to test this, one being control testing and the other uncontrolled testing. You might have an idea about what this means, but simply control testing is a scenario in which the member states will have specific tests before the implementation, and then perform the same tests after in a new environment where the metadata has been added, and sort of manually measure KPIs and see the before and after scenarios. Whereas uncontrolled testing is using the usual site traffic, the users looking for pages, and then documenting. So DG Grow can, on the back end, monitor some of these KPIs that you can see in the bottom here. So ranking of the page and time before clicking, for example. This can be monitored using the normal traffic to see if there are any improvements after metadata has been added. And these are so the KPIs that are now feasible. So we invite you also to sort of brainstorm a bit about this, if how we can measure it. But for now, ranking of the page in the search results, as well as time before clicking, are 2 feasible ways of measuring. And next up, the scenarios or the use cases themselves are quite important. So I will go through all of these. And the first one, as I said, was the base scenario, adding additional metadata and seeing, we don't know this yet, but testing whether a page that would be desirable following a search query gets a higher position in the search rankings. But this is the base scenario, and for now, we don't expect this to be the sort of miraculous way to findability, but indeed, this is the first base scenario. The second scenario is additional filters. We could use the metadata to extend the filters. These are the 2 filters that are currently available on the YourEurope portal. And this way, we could increase findability for the users on the portal. And a third scenario, and this is the most important one, is how the layout of the search results looks, and how additional metadata in part of the pilot can be added here to the search results to make the process of finding the right public service and the right page more efficient for the user. And later on, we will also invite you in the mural, but in a couple of minutes, to brainstorm a bit about this. So next up, what are the efforts required for testing? What can member states do to test your portal or the findability of the search results? And in both cases, controlled and uncontrolled testing, this will include a subjective judgment, and if I'm looking at the second line here, of page relevancy. So there will be an exercise, a manual exercise needed, where keywords are associated with the page that we would like to find, or that the user would like to find, because that is needed to see if the findability has increased. And this will also, in a controlled setting, as I mentioned, includes some tests where you define these keywords specifically, define the pages, go ahead and test it, and then see if the tests are, or if the results are any different after implementation. So that will require some effort from member states in order to do this. And then we can go to the mural again, where the final exercise gives you the opportunity to brainstorm about mostly this third use case that I presented earlier, including additional, a more extensive description or additional info on the YourEurope portal itself. On the left, yeah, Ana Rosa, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. To improve the findability in the portal, I understood that there is a use case based on natural language, and then there is only this use case beside the natural language use case, or there is a third one?
So maybe I'll start on this one. Thanks, Anna. The NLP, natural language processing use case, if you describe it like that, is something extra that is not related to the findability per se, but more on how to ease the tagging of information on web pages. And so we'll come to that right after this in the agenda to the NLP. But the way we approach it, but we'll see that in a couple of minutes, the way we approach it is really how NLP can improve member states, public administrations in general, to automate or semi-automate the tagging of information. So it would go through a web page and identify this information on that web page is actually the name of the public service. And that could be used then by the repository of links and the crawler to increase the quantity of information available for Google and for other for the YourEurope portal in general. So
okay, understood. So let me put the question in another way. Okay. There is any use case for findability that does not use Google?
That does not use Google? That's what you say there, Anna?
Yes, there is a way to find a link, a link without Google. Can I search a link without Google with this pilot?
Not in this pilot.
So, well, that is not good for us. I mean, we don't rely on this Google search facility for the findability at all.
Unfortunately, so because this appeared quite a few times in the discussions today. Unfortunately, giving access to a guided search for the links repository is nearly impossible now. We have 45,000 links, even if and some of the member states have for the same topic 100 links. So let's say I'm a user. First of all, the titles in the annexes need to make sense from a user's point of view. Yeah, and some of them are quite inclusive. This means that a member state on an area in the annex can have 100 links notified. If I am a user and I click there and I see 100 links in no particular order, because we don't have, or member states do not provide which is the most relevant link, and then they do not provide a way of ranking those links for the same topic. So unfortunately, this is the only way we can provide users access to the links in the repository.
Sorry, Alex, but I don't agree with that explanation, because with this Google search,
Yes.
I also can get thousands of results if it
yes, but it has
can work. So the situation is the same. However, using the guided search with the metadata, I am pretty sure that the problems we discussed some meetings before about the inclusion of, I mean, the hierarchy of locations, that if I want to find something within Spain, but the location is Canarias, is not Spain, then I cannot find it, because it is tagged under Canarias, it is not tagged under Spain, and things like that. I mean, of course, there are problems in the searching by with a guide, but like this, it only can be resolved. Those problems only can be resolved if we analyze the use case. But if we don't analyze the use case, of course, there are many situations that cannot be useful.
So, I mean, definitely we can try this, but first of all, we would need additional metadata. With the metadata that we currently have, the guided search will be just 2 steps and then 100 links, because that's what we currently have. We can make a use case for a guided search and test it in parallel, of course. So my point was that we don't exclude this. But this is not part of this particular pilot, and we also need to sit down and see exactly how this guided search would look like, what would be a use case, and what is the data that we would need additionally to what we already have in order to make this happen.
Well, then if Spain cannot extend the metadata of our links for this pilot, I think there is no sense for Spain to participate in this pilot. If the goal for findability is only the Google search, I'm afraid that we cannot spend time doing that exercise.
For the time being, only the Google search will be. There will be no other changes on the SDG side.
Yes. Then we cannot do we cannot participate in the pilot. I'm afraid we cannot spend the time we don't have doing this.
But as I mentioned in the beginning, you can just participate in the pilot and look over the results, because that will not require any effort at this particular point in time.
Yeah, this is an effort for me. Spending time in this meeting is a time I'm not spending in other business. So
I understand. Okay.
So yeah, thank you, but I think it is better for us to leave you work on this. Yeah, thank you very much,
Anna.
Yes.
And yeah, we'll be in touch about the guided search later on.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
In the meantime, I put quickly in the chat the objective of this exercise about use case 3 that Nathan described, where basically we have on the left tags or the metadata that we have in the model, and here the proposition is to see which metadata would you like a user to find out as part of the YourEurope search facility for search option. So by typing some keywords in the search box, what kind of information would you like the user to see? And if you could drag and drop the three most relevant information, that would be, I think, the best part. Of course, the link of the web page is usually something that we always need, because that's the end objective. So maybe you don't need to put that one as part of your top 3. So think about this as additional metadata compared to what we have right now. Right now we have the name of the public service, the procedure, and the link to the right page. So, for example, applying for bachelor's and master's level studies is the name, and you see the link to the studyinfo.finland web page. So those are information that would always be there. But do we need extra information? Yes or no? Which ones? And then we can also briefly discuss how should we see it. Should it be a pop-up window if you hover over the URL, or should it be something that is displayed for the top 3 search results? That's up for discussion. We'll leave 2 minutes to start the exercise, and then we can go over the results quickly. Good. I see that most of the people have drag and drop the little marks, and yeah, the top results so far are the name of the country, which we can derive from the codes, the detailed location, whether it's a region, a municipality, and then third would be the name of the competent authority as text. Of course, the link to the web page will always be there, yes, and a short description as also certain success. I know, Alex, from your side, if there is any comment related to this.
No comments.
Good. I still see. Okay. So don't hesitate. It's still available and open, the mural exercise. So if you still want to add some marks, but I think we have already our top 3 and maybe top 4 tags or metadata. And very briefly, maybe are there pros and cons that you would like to see on the way we should display this information, whether it should be for the top search results, or if it should be an option to always see it if the user puts his mouse, his cursor on one search result. Are there preferred options you would like to see here? You can take the floor or indicate in the chat what would be best in your view. And if this is clear for everyone. Alex, by default, what would be the solution you would go for on your Europe?
But that we will need to see when we're building the user interface. I mean, we will look over the preferences of that were explained here today, and we can see how we will add it to the existing text. A couple of things here is just like the URL is already present there.
Indeed.
So that one, I'm not sure it makes sense to duplicate. We have the short description that is generated by Google, but if we have a better short description put somewhere, or we want to use the one from the repository, we can definitely do that. The rest of the details make sense. I mean, we can have the municipalities, we can have the preferred name for the page. We have the preferred name for the page. We have the title of the page, and we have a title inside the links repository. Again, we will need to see exactly which one we can use, and everybody needs to agree on these particular choices, because some member states might not have used the title in the repository or they might not have intended the information that they put there in the title and the description to be public. Some of them used it for internal uses. So we can see, but most of them do make sense, and they can easily be added. As long as we have the data, we can add it.
Available, of course. Yeah.
Lorenzo has a question or a comment.
Yeah, just to be sure to understand how the search works here. So basically the YourEurope portal is performing a background search using Google.
Yes.
And then applies all the metadata that we are mapping in the model.
Indeed.
Correct?
Indeed.
Okay.
Indeed.
Okay. Thanks.
And from there, for example, the example of Alexander about the short description, what you see on the screen as a screenshot of the results for Apply University Helsinki, the short description there are usually the first 2-3 rows of the web page harvested.
It's either that, or I mean, nowadays Google uses an algorithm to extract the text from the page that makes the most sense compared to the query that you have inputted. So sometimes it takes the description that you put, sometimes it takes text from the page itself.
Yeah. Okay, good. But I think we have input here to support what we would like to see, and maybe we can put as once we have the results in the test environment, Alex. Maybe we can start with the display where the top 3 results would have those extra information.
Yeah.
And then see how we move from there and propose to the member states in that aspect. Good. I see in the meanwhile that the users of the different participants have put some extra answers on the questions over here. That's great. You can continue to do that. You have access to the Mural. But I propose also, for the sake of time, that we move to the next topic. And in the meeting notes after the webinar, we'll come back to this or come back to you in case you want to discuss a part. Just leave your name next to the sticky notes, or in the sticky notes, so that we know who wants to be contacted about a specific point. Switching back to slides. Louis will briefly introduce the NLP as it has been done so far, and to give you an idea of what it would look like for you. So Louis, the floor is yours.
Yeah, can you go just up? So I will just briefly introduce myself. So my name is Louis Mata, and I was part of the development team of the NLP Proof-of-concept. So as a small parenthesis, so NLP stands for Natural Language Processing, and it's a branch of AI specialized in understanding natural language. So as we talk now. So what, without further introductions, let's dive into the prototype. What was its objective? So first, as you might have known now, it's to automatize the tagging of HTML pages. So as we understood, so there were several ways to tag HTML pages now, and the goal in one way or another, and the goal of this prototype is to automatize this. And the second objective, and it's to provide a concrete example of NLP in the public sector. So basically to give you a blueprint on the good practice, and the key easy wins, and also the challenges that might come if you want to do the same type of exercise in your own country. Of course, we needed to scope the prototype. So the first one, for technical reasons, was English. So we focused only on English web pages for now. And the second scope was we use the current data model. So this is what we have done now. So it's not the data model that was presented by my colleagues during the webinar. That was the previous one. So now I would like to have a few words about the study on natural language processing in a public context. So what you need to understand is that this prototype was part of a broader work on NLP in a public sector. And so for that, we have written a deliverable, so named Natural Language Processing for Public Service, where we describe what are the main goals of NLP, and how to create by yourself an NLP project. And we used this example, so the NLP prototype, as a blueprint in this deliverable. So there you will see from the idea to the real development what it takes to build this kind of prototype. And this deliverable should be released soon. So now let's dive into how it works. Can you just, yeah, thank you. So for the NLP proof of concept, so first we have the web pages that each one of you need to tag and that are relevant for the single digital gateway. And from this web page, they serve as an input for the NLP proof of concept. And what's inside the NLP proof of concept? We have three components. So the first one is the NLP client that ask an API that asks the API to that itself asks the NLP engine which are the meta tags that need to be added to the web page. Then the NLP engines, thanks to the content of the web page, so release text inside the web page, analyze it, and from them gives as an output the meta tags to the NLP client that enrich the web page. So first, if I resume a little bit, so we have first the web pages that serve as an input. Then we have the NLP model, which use several NLP model to perform text classification, and then that automatically enrich the web page, as you can see at the bottom right of the web page of the page. So if I make a link with what Theodore presented before, so the way that he did it was to use a content management system in order to enrich the web page. With this kind of prototype, he will not, most likely, he will not need to use that to do that because the enrichment of the web page will be done manually. So if you go to the next slide, yes, thank you. Of course, we have done this prototype, but it's still a prototype yet. It's not a fully grown service. So there are several steps forward. The first one is, of course, to be scaled up, because for now, it has a potential to tag a few hundreds of web pages. But of course, if it's scaled up at the scale of the EU and for each member state, it needs to have a proper another infrastructure to do that. if the results are positive, but the preliminary results are really positive, and so we are agreed to do more. Second of all, as Theodore mentioned, there is an obligation for local administration to provide SDG information by the end of 2022, meaning that a lot of web pages, thousands of web pages, will need to be tagged. And this prototype will relieve the burden of the manual work from you, or has the potential to relieve the manual work from you. And thirdly, what we need now is to integrate this prototype to a member state IT infrastructure to know what would be the challenges and the quick wins in order to scale this prototype to all of the member states now. Thank you. Do you have any questions on this prototype?
Maybe we can give a very short demo of what it looks like, how it works, and from there, maybe it will be also clear for everyone. As we pointed out, one key use case is for the municipalities, the local authorities who have the deadline of the end of this year to tag the current metadata asked or required by the SDG for the repository of links. So that's one aspect. And I think there, for example, Greece mentioned Theodore earlier today that they would be interested in looking further into this. If you are also interested, feel free to put it in the chat or simply to contact us via email. That's also fine. Another use case, of course, is in the future also to extend this to the extra metadata that we are currently looking at as part of this pilot. And of course, at first, we'll need to tag manually or through the way we are doing it right now as part of the pilot to train the NLP algorithm, the NLP model to learn, and from there to be able to apply it automatically and iteratively improve its accuracy in predicting the right keywords, the right tags. But that's definitely also a use case to progressively also apply this NLP on additional metadata, so that you would not need, for extra metadata, you would not need to every time add manually a lot of web pages for a lot of web pages, those extra information, but only with a core or a limited subset of pages, it would be sufficient. And okay, for that, I propose also, because I see we need still 1 or 2 minutes before showing the demo. So I propose to move quickly to the timeline. What we propose today, we are the knowledge sharing session, the 17th, and we would like to propose in the next 2, maximum 3 weeks to come to try to have all information mapped by all participants with our help. So let us know if that's definitely not feasible for you, so that we adapt the planning every time. But from there, that's basically the time that Alex and his team would need from your Europe perspective and the repository of links to develop the functionalities to harvest the extra metadata. But from there, by the end of January, normally the system should be ready to accept this extra metadata and could be made available then on the repository of links site. That would mean also that as from the second week, let's say maximum third week of February, the testing on the YourEurope portal could start for a couple of weeks. And the idea would be, as we explained earlier on with Nathan, that each of us take some time to to go through the different web pages that are part of this pilot activity, and to test with the use cases we explained and some KPIs whether it improved or not. The extra metadata we discussed on how to add it in the search results would also be, of course, included there. And so preliminary results of the testing could be the object of a concluding webinar for us around the first week of March. We'll send a save the date notification in the coming weeks. And from there, we could decide what to look forward with and what would be the next steps simply. When it comes to the NLP proof of concept, as mentioned, please just let us know if you're interested, and then we'll be happy to start with a couple of member states to tag their web pages automatically, and from there show the results as part of the concluding webinar or as part of another webinar later on. So that's for the timeline. Are there any questions related to this? Great. Then I propose we move to the demo. Emilio, would you like to take the screen?
Yes, hello. 1 second. I show my screen. I should be able to see. Basically, that's an example that you have. We took a web page from the Netherlands. I hope you see my screen.
Hello?
Yes,
Yeah, we can see.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's an example that we took. We took a copy of the web page from Netherlands in this case, in our own the server where we do our development projects. We added a small, basically an NLP client, which is basically a JavaScript that contact the API, as Louis mentioned, and in turn contact the NLP engine to process the data. So what you see over here on the right hand side, we see if I even reload the page, it will be the same. We see that the NLP client is looking all the metadata that exist already in the page, if they exist, and it summarizes at a certain point which meta tags are needed. For example, in this case, we have DC service policy code or DC policy. And it will perform the request towards the API. The result of the API is provided back with the information. For example, DC service, the value will be an information here. The policy code will be N1 according to the annex with all the code of the annex one, and the DC policy will be the related one, will be acquiring licenses, authorization, permits to start operating a business. So in this case, if we want to see the page source enriched, sorry, inspect the page, we go above over here, the meta tag on the bottom. We should be able to see the meta tags that are enriched. You can see them on the right, and I hope you'll be able to see them. I try to enlarge it. But you see the meta tags that are needed as SDG tag, DC service with the information with the policy code, DC policy, the original ones, and then the added one here in this case. So depends, of course, on the policy of the JavaScript. If we want to modify the existing meta tags or add it, that's something to be added, of course. But you see that the classification is getting there. So let's say it's processed. and the information can be even better, let's say, classified without the addition meta tags added into the web page. So it can be dynamically added, the meta tags. That's it for the demo.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Emilio. It was clear. So yeah, I hope it's also clear for everyone. And again, if you're interested, please let us know. In any case, Valentini, Teodoro, Lilian will be in touch in the case of Greece. Yeah, maybe a small indication, as Emilio pointed out, we have used for this existing links that are collected as part of the repository of links. Of course, we are not tagging the real instances of your web pages without your agreement. We are tagging copies in our own environment that is not publicly available. Just a small clarification. If, for example, for you, Marco, it was a surprise that we had the website from the Netherlands.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, great. Yeah, and in general, yeah, we are at the end of the webinar. Maybe let me share back my screen. We'll also share the recording, the final slides, as well as the meeting minutes of today's webinar. And you will see here different aspects that we could develop together as part of the next steps, but we'll definitely be in touch regarding those three activities. Maybe there will be more by then together in the next webinar in March. So no need to spend a lot of time right now on those ones. Have a look if you are interested in those, and if you have other ideas, of course, we are also eager to know them. And with that, yeah, we would like all of us would like to thank you for participating. If you are, yeah, you have some contact information and further links on this slide. Yeah, thank you very much to Greece for the presentation, and I hope you enjoyed today's knowledge sharing session. We'll have other ones in the coming weeks related to other topics outside of this pilot activity. So definitely stay in touch. And yeah, with that, I wish you a great start of the week. I don't know, Miguel, if you would like to say a word.
You said everything. Thank you very much to Greece, Theodore, Valentini, Liliana. Also to the colleagues of YourEurope, Alexandru, and all of you, because I know it's the eve of this long meeting tomorrow on the Once Only technical system. So thanks a lot for your patience and your time today and these valuable discussions. We are following up on this with you. We are here to support you, so we will keep these interactions with you in coming weeks. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.